Hi, my name is Agnes. This is Sizwe podcast. Most of the time when we have a privilege to bring a personality into our studio, for me, I marvel at their age and how much they have achieved. Today in my studio, I have Keith Phiri. I hope I pronounced the name right. Yes. And Keith, he's a lecturer, he's a researcher. He holds doctorate degrees in social science and more. Guys, I don't want to make a mistake, but today I'm going to pin him down into one thing. But before that, I want him to tell us more about what he has done so far with his young life. I'm jealous. Welcome, Keith.
Thank you, Agnes.
So, who are you?
Well,
academically, socially, everything. Tell me.
Okay. Thank you, Agnes, for having me today. As you have rightly put, I've been in the academia for the past 14 years.
Wow.
Having started back home in Zimbabwe, Lupane State University, where I did my first degree from 2004 to 2008. That was an honors degree in history and development studies. It was a 4-year program. And then I did my master's program from 2010 to about 2011. It was an 18-month degree in development studies as well.
Awesome.
And then I did my PhD in social sciences, specializing in climate change from 2015 to 2019. So with all those academic achievements, I've been active in the field of climate change.
Awesome. Where
I've done field researches, I've done publications. I think I'm now at 22 publications.
I saw 23.
Yeah, 23, wow. 23, yeah, 23 right, to be precise, mostly on climate change. And my passion comes from the fact that Zimbabwe, where I come from, is one of the areas that are hit by climate change, the impacts of climate change in terms of droughts, flooding, food insecurity, water insecurity. So I felt that I should document some of the experiences of our communities, how they are affected, and possibly encourage some funding and some interventions that can help our communities to adapt and build their resilience towards this global challenge called climate change. So,
and most of these things you have done both locally and internationally.
Yes, true.
Awesome.
Yeah. So
are you married?
Yes, I've.
Okay, I'm more interested in that.
Yes, I'm married to one wife. I have 3 sons. The firstborn is 10 years.
Oh.
And then this
guys, he's taking already.
And then the second is 7 years, and then the last is 6 years. Yeah.
Thank you so much. If you just join us, this is Sizwe podcast. I'm talking to a doctor in academics, and he likes social sciences. And you know, he said something that I thought we Africans and immigrants do not care: climate change. But Keith is bringing it home, and that is what I want to narrow, because he's a professor, he's a lecturer. I don't want to go big. I want to bring it to 101 level where I can understand how he has taken the climate change. And the beautiful thing is that he wants to involve the indigenous knowledge system about climate change and how somehow we have abandoned it, but he thinks his research work has proven that the knowledge that our ancestors had, it's more powerful and applicable even in today's world. And that is why I brought Keith here. Thank you so much, Keith. So can you explain to us what Indigenous Knowledge System, IKS, is all about?
Well, okay, thank you. Thank you once more, Agnes. Well, when we are talking about climate change, others would prefer to call it a social and cultural construct. But really, when we are talking about indigenous knowledge systems, we are talking about, number one, knowledge. We are talking about propositions, and we are talking about skills that have been acquired over time by what we call local people or indigenous people, through observance, through history, through folk stories that they've learned over time. And those systems or those bodies of knowledge inform how they make their decision in terms of their farming systems, how they hunt, how they predict weather. Their basic general life is governed by some of these systems and the knowledge that they've acquired over time. And they seem to be working for them because they closely relate with nature. They know the river systems. They know the wind systems. They know all the lunar systems. They know weather formations. So through those experiences over time, they've learned to make informed decisions and plan for the future.
Guys, I am smiling at what Dr. Keith is saying because he is taking me home. I will tell you a story. I grew up with my grandmother, and she didn't have a clock. But every morning, she would scream, "Yeah, you are almost late for school." And she will look at the length of my shadow. Okay. And she will tell me that you are late, that you are almost late. And she will tell us when it is 12 o'clock. And she will tell us when it is 6 o'clock, just looking at the length of the shadow. And you know the beautiful thing? Yes. We live very close to the shore. And she reads the shape of the skies. Yes. And she will be able to tell you when fish, herrings are a type of fish that swam almost to a certain part of the shore where fishermen can go and harvest in abundance. And my grandmother can predict looking at the skies. And so now when you're talking about indigenous knowledge and how they relate to the lunar changes, and you are bringing me home. Please tell us more.
Yes. Part of my passion is that I love fishing as well. Oh. So a good fisherman will know that when the moon is bright, it's not a good time to do fishing during the day, because the fish, when the moon is bright, they feed during the night. So when you attempt to fish during the day, they will be well fed. So if you don't know those signs, you will waste your time. You will not harvest anything.
To cast the net at the wrong time.
At the wrong time. So part of the indigenous knowledge systems involve what we call the lunar position, and also what we call...
With no gadgets.
Yeah, with no gadget. Yeah. Wow. Celestial positioning of the stars and the moon, half moon, full moon. They all can tell, our elders, the custodians of indigenous knowledge systems, they can tell the kind of weather that will come on the basis of what you call lunar and celestial positioning, basing on the stars, basing on whether it's a quarter moon, it's a half moon, it's a full moon. They can predict the weather, whether it's going to be rainy, whether it's going to be sunny, whether it's going to be windy.
Goodness.
They can tell using that lunar and celestial positioning.
Very good. So what have you learned? Where are your sources of information, and how are you marrying this with your academic ideas to help in the climate change system in Zimbabwe?
Okay, right. Over time, we have realized that local people normally, in comparison to what we call meteorological information and scientific information that they get from the Met Department,
the forecast people,
has not really been accurate for them.
The local people have not been able to utilize that kind of forecast that is given on TV and radio.
Yes, because
they themselves can predict it.
They themselves can predict it, and they use it in so many various ways. We were talking about the lunar and celestial positioning. One of the things that they use also is what we call plant phenomenology.
Ooh.
Plant
Can you calm down, please? Guys, I'm speaking to a doctor. He is so passionate about what he's doing, but today, because he has so much knowledge, I'm just pinning him down on indigenous knowledge system in relate to climate change. How the local community, the indigenous people of every land, can look at the changes in the environment and predict correctly than all that the gadgets can do. Okay. Let's listen to Keith.
Okay, thank you. I was talking about plant phenomenology. Over time, the communities that we have interviewed, that we have interacted, they've actually boldly claimed that their own indigenous knowledge systems are more accurate, they are more viable, they are more effective in predicting weather and compared to the scientific knowledge. They are saying actually the scientific knowledge has
failed them.
Has failed them.
Oh.
And so even if the conventional communities don't believe them, they believe their own systems. They've worked for them. Like, for example, I was given an example of plant phenomenology, where the flowering of certain of plants, the fruiting of certain trees can actually tell
them something.
Yeah, can tell them something, that they are going to have a good rains, they are going to have a good harvest, and they base their farming decision, their planting season based on that.
On the plants and the changes of the flowering and the shape of the leaves.
Exactly. So, and then the other thing that works for them, they also talk of animal behavior.
It's true.
Animal behavior.
It's true.
That when they look at swallows are also an indicator that there's going to be a lot of rain. When there are birds called swallows.
Yeah, I know swallows. So when they are swarming.
When they are swarming around, there are so many, they can predict that the weather is going to be good. They can also tell that there are going to be floods through the behavior of how birds nest. When birds are building their nest on high points, it's an indicator that there's going to be a lot of rains, there are going to be a lot of floods. So to protect their young ones, to protect themselves, they build on high precedence so that they are not affected by the floods. So these are some of the examples. Even the behavior of domestic animals, cattle, goats, they are twinning. They are an indicator of abundance as well.
Guys, if you just join us, this is Sizwe Podcast. I have goosebumps all around me, and Keith is taking me home. You know, we just had our community garden here, and on 23rd of September, we harvested. 3 weeks before that, there was an older gentleman that walked into our garden. And me and my friends were talking about how dry the weather is, and the leaves of the tomato have just become a little bit mottled, like almost cooked. You know what that elder man said? The leaves of the tomato indicate that there's going to be rain. Yes. We took it for granted. Yes. I drove home, and that evening there was a storm. Okay. And I called my friend, like, do you remember what the man said? And he said yes. So Keith is saying that our indigenous knowledge system in terms of climate change is more accurate. Our elders were able to predict clearly how to prepare for the future. I'm going back to Keith because he has gone to the indigenous people. He has been into the academic. How are you using this knowledge to benefit the people of Zimbabwe, especially with the younger generation, so that we don't lose these nuggets before all the elders and the keepers of this knowledge pass away?
This is the first step that I'm doing. Having an interview and interaction with you.
I love this. I want this to go far. So give me all the nuggets. This is so beautiful.
One of the ways of transferring information, is particularly to the young generation, is through social media.
Awesome.
So when we are doing podcasts, when we are doing a TikTok conversations, when we are taking it to YouTube, when we are taking it to Facebook, when we are taking it to Twitter, and all other various social platforms that young people love, we are then beginning to transmit and transfer that knowledge to various groups. Because the challenge of indigenous knowledge systems sometimes is that it remains with the elders.
And it is oral. Most of them are not written that, but at least now we have the gadget to store this knowledge, the knowledge orally, so that we are not going to lose them when they pass on.
Yes,
that is so beautiful.
True. And one of the things that I was in Montreal recently,
for
a climate change adaptation conference, and one of the ways we saw indigenous people demonstrating the knowledge that they have through nature, through accustoming to their land, was through dances. They were doing dances, they were doing poetry, they were doing drama as part of an outlet or an exhibit to what indigenous knowledge systems can do for people to live a socially, culturally, and politically organized life. So these are some of the platforms. It can be through print media, electric media. It can also be through performances, art performances that demonstrate their dancing, that demonstrate their culture, that demonstrate...
They are telling the story through that.
Yeah, telling the story through that. People love it. It's a source of entertainment, but it can also be what we call edutainment, where you
Edutainment.
combine entertainment and education at the same time.
Awesome. If you just join us, this is Sizwe Podcast. Today I am so happy because Keith is taking me back home, indigenous knowledge system, and he's so passionate about climate change. I'm going to ask him again, what are some of the places that he has done his presentations? I was told he's well traveled, and I want to go to those places through the stories that he's going to tell us today. But you know, one thing that he said that he's using the current gadgets that we have for our elders who are the knowledge keepers to tell their story to us, so that we can also preserve them for the future. Because if there's a break, because like I said, in my village, my grandmother could look at the sky and she'll tell you a storm is coming, let's go. And if you laugh at her, you'll be get whipped by but now she's gone, and most of that knowledge is gone with the little that I got. So Keith, what are some of the areas you just mentioned that you were in Montreal? What are some of the places that you have been, and the talks and the papers that you have written that you want to tell us about?
Thank you so much. Last year, I was in the United States of America for
take me with you.
for about 2.5 months. We were part of the global leaders that are fighting against climate change. It was a cohort of about 25 leaders from Ghana, from Nigeria, from Kenya, from South Africa, from Tanzania, from Rwanda.
Wow.
So we're part of
that team.
We were selected from a group of 400 applicants. We made it to the top 25. And part of what we're doing is we were visiting places. We're dealing even with indigenous people and trying to compare notes. And we found that we are more or less the same in terms of it's a different setting, it's a different setup, it's a different context. But indigenous knowledge systems, they cut across cultures, they cut across continents in Europe. So I've been to the States, I've been to South Africa, I was in Kenya in June. Next year, I'm most likely going to be in America as well. I was supposed to be in Netherlands, but it was disturbed by COVID-19 as well. We are packaging that information through what we call journal peer-reviewed articles. That it captures the academia. But as well, we've started with what we call Writers for Climate Change. And our first book is going to be telling stories in layman terms, without citations, without a lot of...
Without scientific terms.
Without scientific terms, so that it can reach to the ordinary citizens. But also, we are looking forward to getting some funding, getting some donors, so that we package the information in the local language. Because the local language, so that we present it in their own language that is translated to their various dialects, so that they can relate to it. And we also are planning to do it through pictures as well. Pictures are powerful. We're planning to do through videos so that we can also cover people who are not necessarily who know how to read and write, but can tell through videos. And we wish also to do documentaries, stories that can be shared through various social media platforms.
How can we be involved in this?
Right.
If others are listening to us, and I know you are, climate change, at first I thought it was far, far away. Keith is coming all the way from Zimbabwe, and climate change is right there at home. It's right where we are right now. We really have to get involved. And I'm asking him, if you are listening to us, you have some big bats and you want to get involved, how can we or you get involved into this project?
Yes, thank you so much for that one. I think we need to have a continuous conversation on this, and we can get a lot of ideas even through the comment sections.
Awesome.
To say, here you are, Keith. I have these resources. I have the human resources. I have the financial resources. How can we contribute to your project? Because it's the continuation of the conversation will make it even more louder and louder. But others can bring in we are open to different ideas to say, how do we build from what we have started and get into different sections, get into different communities. It can be in Europe, it can be in America, it can be in Asia, it can be in Africa. Let me hasten to say there are so many people that are doing this work. But it will be good to have maybe a webinar, maybe an organized conference. It can be a hybrid conference. We can plan and escalate this information on indigenous knowledge systems so that we keep that information alive and cascade it even to the next generation.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Do you accept invitations?
I'm all yours. I'll be happy to present anywhere, be it physical or virtual. I can make myself available anytime.
Awesome. I'm asking because those who are watching us, Keith is a well full of knowledge and he's so passionate. The good thing is he's marrying the indigenous knowledge system with the academics and he's great. So if you have a conference somewhere in Ghana, in Nigeria, in all parts of Africa and Europe and Americas and you want him to come, his passport is ready. Just pay for the plane ticket and he will be there to teach our young ones how to marry the indigenous knowledge system to the gadget that we have put in space to be able to control the climate that we think. Today's date is what? And there's no snow. It tells you something. Before I go, I will ask Keith, do you have anything more to add to what we have done so far?
Thank you so much, Agnes. I will encourage us as young people from our different spaces that let's respect, let's honor the information that our ancestors, our forefathers said. It really works. So let's not discard it. Let's not refer to it as inferior. It's very important. That old school, that mix of old school will take us a long way. I think there is a scripture that says, do not destroy the landmark.
Yes.
That has been said by your forefathers.
Before you remove it, you should ask why it was put there.
It was established.
And it has so much knowledge.
Yeah. So please let's guard jealously the information from our culture, from our tradition, from our society, because it will help us to sustain our environment and our people. Thank you.
Thank you. I just spoke to Keith Phiri. He's a doctor in social science, and he has so much research work under his belt. If you need him, you can contact us through this podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Agnes.